So a lot of people have been asking for a quick video on how to use the decryption and encryption tool for modding Star Ocean 2. So the Star Ocean 2 game, the resources or the assets that it loads into Unity, all of them have been encrypted. However, as long as you have the original file name, you can actually run a decryption algorithm and decrypt it to its original file name and decrypt the contents to a standard Unity format. So there's been a list compiled of a lot of what the original file names are. However, there are still quite a big chunk missing. Most of the interesting or important ones are found from just playing the game and looking at what the game loads. So the first step would be to actually decrypt one of these files. So the way to do that would be to run like a small batch script like this. So this is the tool that will actually do the decryption. Then we pass the parameter that we do want to decrypt, and then the original name of one of these files. The next parameter is obviously the path to where these files are. If you are just using like a standard Steam install, then this is probably correct for you. However, if you have your Steam apps stored in a custom location, you'll probably need to change this. The last parameter here is the location or the name of the folder where the decrypted asset will be saved to. So we're just going to run this decrypt batch script with this message en is the file that we want to decrypt. This stores a lot of the dialogue and the character names, so we can have a look at this one first. So if we just run this, and then we got the decrypted asset here. So the best tool I've found to open and explore these assets is a tool called UABEA, Avalonia. It can be a little awkward to use. The links for this tool and the other tools I'll try and put in the video description. So we're just going to open up this file here. So if we go to the decrypted asset, we open this, and then we click on info, we can see that within this asset file, these are all the different actual files. So if we look at something like character message here, if we view data, let's go with edit data, we can see that this stores the actual names of the characters. So there's plenty of names. So why don't we change one, and we can kind of just test to make sure that we have the process for actually changing these files and then re-encrypting them working. So one of the first characters we see will probably be Ronix. So if we just try and find here's, so you can see, like, if we change the first name, I've already changed this, but if we change it to something different, something that we can identify actually in the game, and we'll just change it to Renox's 101, and then we'll hit OK. And then when you look at it in this tool here, you'll see that there's like a little star in this modified section. So when you do that, you just want to hit save to actually commit these changes. And then we want to close this window and then hit save again. I think can be a little bit difficult to get this to work just right. Looking at the timestamp, it does look like this is saved. But if we exit out of it and we go back to the tool again and we just reopen it, we can just double check that those changes were actually committed. Yep, so those changes were actually committed. And then we'll go back to the encrypt tool. And so the encrypt tool is running the same application again with the encrypt parameter instead of the decrypt parameter. And then it's looking in this location here, so it's looking at this decrypted assets, and then it's looking for that message en. So you'll need to change this for the file that you're actually working with, and then it'll output it into the encrypted assets folder, which will be in the same directory here. So if we just run this, we have our encrypted asset, and then if we go to the actual streaming files that are in the game folder, so within that Steam Apps common game folder, and then go to streaming assets. If we look for this one for C6DF, so I've already been messing with this one, so I've already got a backup here, but I recommend either making a backup of this entire folder or backing up each individual file as you modify them. So if we just copy this one over the top, and then when we run the game, we'll just start in with a new game just to test that this is working.
How's it look?
And we can see that the actual character name has changed to the Ronix's 101. So that's just the process for easily changing like character names, which will be stored in that that message _en. I assume that if you're looking to change the character names for a different localization, then those will be have the different suffix for the actual localization. So if we go to message, I'm not sure if we do have any of the other localizations. Okay, so we do have the Japanese one. I assume that's Korean, Chinese, and maybe Taiwanese. So some of the other interesting files that we can look at, I think another one of the interesting ones is parameter. So if we change this script here, all we'll need to change is this section here to be parameter. If we save that and then run it again, we will get the parameter file. So if we do the same thing with the tool we use to inspect them, so if we go to here, so you might need to save like a decompressed version of this file when working with this tool. I'll show you the process of how to actually re-encrypt this to make sure it still works. So there's quite a lot in here. Like if we look at some of these like battle skill parameters, we can find something like, I think, Firebolt, and then they will have like a casting time of like 0.05. Whereas if you look at like a skill, like one of these actual, I don't know what you call them, melee character skills, they have a casting time of 0, so they cast instantly. Whereas if you go to like a magic spell, like Firebolt or Eruption, then you can see that they actually have a casting time associated with them. So one of the interesting things to do is we can actually change that casting time to 0 for something like Firebolt. And I'm not sure if I have a character with Firebolts, but we'll just change a few of them, like Lightning Bolt maybe. So Thunderbolt, change that to 0 as well. We'll just hit OK here. Again, just check that you got that star there, then file, save, OK. And then exit out of this and just see you got that star there. So file save as, I find, is normally the best way to do it. And then if we go to just save over the top of this one here. If you want to keep original decrypted version, you might want to just rename the original version like .org or .original or something, and then if you ever change something that causes the game to break, you can go back to that original file and start editing it again. So we'll see that. Not quite sure exactly what happened with that, because it looks like it has saved over the top of this other one, even though it gave us a warning message. I think there can be some weird issues with this. The other thing is, if we click here to compress, we do get some options for compression. However, because it's just using standard Unity asset files, you do not actually need to use any compression. So if we just call this like param.compressed just for now, and then typically it looks like it uses, the game originally uses like a LZ4, but a slightly more robust, like a more compressed version than what this tool uses, but this will give us a closest version. So this one, originally it was 550, and now with this tool compressing it, it's 617. So if we do just close this down, and then we'll open this again just to check that it has actually made those changes. So I think we were looking at the battle parameter. So yeah, that has saved those changes, so the casting time is 0 for that, and we'll just double check it again with Thunderbolt. And Thunderbolt has been changed as well. So we can just close this. So it looks like we already have two versions here. So I might just delete this one and then remove the extension from that file so it's easier to run in the re-encryption tool. Then we'll go to encrypt. Save that and run it. Sorry, I changed the wrong parameter. Let's change that to decrypt, to encrypt, sorry. And change this to parameter. And then we got a new file just here. So if we go back into our assets, this is the 03144. I think this is, again, another one that I've been playing with. So we already have a backup of the original. So if we grab this, we just drop it over the top. So if we look, you can see that the casting time has actually been reduced completely. So we can just spam spells with no casting time. Still doesn't look like they do much damage, but that shows just how to mess with how the characters work for their combat abilities and what files to look for. In another video I can show how to actually start extracting assets from the game. You will need other tools, as the tool that we're using, the UABEA tool, doesn't really work for actually extracting assets. But I'll go through that in another video of how to extract files like the world map and other locations. You can actually, if you have the right version of Unity, you might even not need the right version of Unity, but I'll show you just the process of how to open up those files, those asset files, and you can inspect those and see how those work. So that's it for just this video and this example. We'll try and get that next video uploaded fairly quickly.